Good evening, witches, warlocks, sorcerers, adepts, friends, fans, family, and followers to Knights of the Nephilim Radio, the hit underground occult radio show, brought to you by Celestial Oddities Radio and the Coterie of Samil Arcane Occult Order. We are on Season 4, Episode 5, and we want to thank you for listening in this evening. As always, I will be your host and guide on this obscure and mysterious journey into magic and mysticism, darkness and divination. I am Reverend Frater Crow, and it's a pleasure to have you listening in this evening. Whether you're listening live or you're streaming after the fact, or you've downloaded us to your device for on the go, we do want to thank you for your patronage and support. But please make sure you click the like, share, follow, and subscribe buttons on whatever platform you're tuning in from. Whether it be iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Deezer, Spreaker, CastBox, Google, Amazon, YouTube, Instagram, or Facebook, we do air across absolutely everything. So feel free to listen where you feel comfortable. But by clicking those buttons, it moves us up the podcast community rankings, allows more people to discover the show, keeps you in the loop with new episodes as they air, and gives you unfiltered access to all of our shows, including this one, Knights of the Nephilim, based upon esoteric science, occult doctrine, and ritual magic, interviewing and talking with the biggest and best names in occultism, from ritual practitioners and tool makers to authors, theologians, and mystics, or it be one of our other shows like Celestial Oddities, The Pong, Pair of Normal Guys podcast, where we center that around paranormal and supernatural phenomena, interviewing professionals within the field, deep diving into specific content matter, and doing special episodes known as Odd World, where we take phone calls from listeners just like you from around the world to hear your strange and extraordinary stories of the unexplained. Or lastly, it'd be our show that is now retired with almost 100 episodes released called Uncovering the Underground, where we interview, people within the fields of music to modeling, stars of the big screen, comedy, oddities, and everything in between. We're always aiming to give you thought-provoking content and mind-expansive content here at Celestial Oddities Radio, and I think we certainly do that. So if you're enjoying it, share it around with someone else. Support in any way that you see fit. It means a lot to us. On your screen right now, though, you will see a QR code pop up. That is for what's called Buy Me a Coffee. That is a way that you can show your support, whether it's $1 or anything beyond. Your support through the show allows me to continue to release content and episodes, and your support through your coffee allows me to fuel my day. So I really appreciate it. It goes a long way, more than you might realize. So if you're feeling like you want to contribute to the show, by all means, you can take a picture of that QR code, jump on there, and make a little donation. It goes a long way, like I said, folks. Doing a lot of entertainment, a lot of releases, a lot of sermons and things coming out from my end, and it just helps me to be able to organize those things and do them a little bit more efficiently. I want to thank our sponsors. As always, we have a slew of them. They're great companies, and throughout the evening, we will take a break to sponsor and spotlight these sponsors. First, I would like to thank Goetic Impressions, Limitless Liberations, The Telemancer, Arsnosis, Aragni Arcane Services, Little Shop of Lilith, and Belladonna's Botanicals for all that they do for the show and for the occult scene. They make wonderful items, wonderful products. Some of them are teachers and offer classes and do much, much more, and we'll talk a little bit about that this evening. So, as always, folks, if you've missed any of the past episodes, make sure you go back and check them out. That's the great thing about this show is if you miss it live, which we always air live, you can always go back and check it out afterwards. And if you jump into this episode, halfway through, you can always go back and listen to it from the beginning. You're never going to miss anything, even if you miss something. So it's a great way of always capturing what we're talking about and really absorbing it. Sometimes it needs more than one listen. But if you missed any of the previous 4 episodes this season 4 of Knights of the Nephilim, go back and check them out. We've had great guests. We had Shay Belay, author of Friedrich Nietzsche in the Left-Hand Path, followed by Matthew Venus, owner and operator of Spiritus Arcanum in Massachusetts. We had the 3rd episode, the famous Lon Milo Duquette, who's released, 30 different books, top sellers, and just a wonderful gentleman to talk to. And last episode, a good friend of mine, John Vermillion, author of several great books as well. And we got very deep dived into alien and ET intelligences and peeking behind the veil into thought patterns that most might not be really thinking about, but are very, credible. So something to check out. This evening, we have Augustine Moriar from the Abysmal Serpent Satanic Coven, and we are very excited to bring him on the show. We're going to talk a little bit about left-hand path modalities, satanic thought, and what it's like to be a leader and a figure within the satanic community. I've been one myself for a long time, and I know I disappeared a little while back, and since I've come back, I've kind of kept a low profile, but I know what that is like, and I would like to talk to Augustine about that as well and see what his take on it is now that, it seems like more people were waking up, and the world is changing rapidly, and how he views that as being a figure in that community. So, as always, folks, I would say grab your ritual athames, put on your ceremonial attire, light your candles and focus your desire. Step into the circle and intone the sacred names. Give offering and praise as we stare into the flames and conjure the spirit that is Augustine Moriar. Augustine, brother, thank you so much for coming on the show this evening.
Not a problem. I appreciate the invite.
Absolutely. I look forward to kind of deep diving into some different subject matter with you and just kind of shooting the breeze, as I like to do with my guests, and finding out a little bit more about you, about your order, and about some of your thoughts in what's going on in the world today and into what we love, which is Satanism and the left-hand path.
Sounds good. Let's get started.
Absolutely. So as traditional way goes for me, I like to, start out where you think we would start, which is the beginning for you. Where, when you think back over your lifetime and you think about occultism and left-hand path, or just occultism in general, because maybe you didn't start on the left-hand path. Not everybody has. And, where does your starting point happen? And what does it look like for you since that point till now? Kind of give us a little bit of a synopsis of how that's formulated for you.
Not a problem. My story is it's quite similar to a lot of people in the left-hand path story. My father was a Pentecost minister, and growing up, we were, always tugged along to church to watch the old man stand at the pulpit and preach fire and brimstone and the love of Jesus. And then when he would come home, he wasn't a very good man. He was abusive to his kids, and he cheated on his wife. So when you're growing up as a young kid, looking at these things, it starts to make you wonder, who is God? And if there is a God, why are we living this way, in this family, in this household? So when I was old enough, I was 13 years old, a couple friends of mine, other teenagers that I was hanging out with, introduced me to witchcraft. And they had, I think it was Gerald Gardner's main book on witchcraft, and it really appealed to me, the structure of it. And so I started messing with that kind of stuff, and we actually created a small coven of about 5 of us, and we kept that coven going from 13 to about 17 years of age. And we would, always try to find the newest and best things about it, because it was really hidden in my time. Growing up, I grew up in the 80s, where the Satanic Panic was a huge thing. You had all these Christian churches just constantly, attacking anybody who didn't follow their ideology. So in the search for God, for me, that was kind of part of what I was doing and why I picked it up. But it taught me that, there is much more than just God. But let's fast forward past that, and let's get into when I started actually really diving into a solo pattern of faith. Coming from a church background, I guess you could say, the thing about faith was like instilled in me. Now, was it faith to be a Christian? No, but there was a faith at knowing that there was something greater than myself out there, and there had to be a way to tap into it and to use this energy for the betterment of myself. So at 17, I went to Mississippi. And when I was in Mississippi with my brother, we met a lady. Her name was Joyce Walton, who's probably deceased now. But she lived alone in a trailer on top of a hill called Walton Hill. And when I met her and was invited to her trailer, she had a library. Not quite as big as mine is now today, but she had a library of like the black arts and anything witchcraft and magic. And I had told her, I said, well, when I was younger, we did a coven thing, was doing witchcraft, and but we were just like teaching ourselves. So it was like I couldn't really say or feel like I was doing anything right. Well, I spent 6 months there with her because she dated my brother. So she taught me folk magic, and she explained to me how magic actually works as far as tapping into energies, the deities, the demonic. And I just kind of took that with me for the rest of my life. When I hit my early 20s, I discovered the Golden Dawn, the Big Black Brick is what they call it, by Israel Regardie. And for 20 years, I studied anything and everything Golden Dawn. I would try to do their rituals solo, which, if you know the Golden Dawn, the complexity of the rituals is absurd when you're trying to do it as a solo practitioner. I knew there were temples out there, but in that era, in my youth, the internet was a fledgling, so there was like no way to use it to find anybody, so everything was self-taught. And then I kind of, in and out of that, I would practice for a long time, I would study, but when you're solo and you're studying something that's almost like you need a PhD to understand, it gets frustrating, so I put it to the side for a while, but it was always in my heart. I continued to do things like the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, the greater ritual of the pentagram, the hexagram rituals, and things like that, not so much to cause change for myself, but to imbue myself with the powers of the elements, the spirit, the planetary, because I knew that as long as I was doing these rituals, I was empowering myself. And yeah, it's kind of, how it went for a long time. And then Satanism came when I finally decided that I fell into the Gnostic mindset of where God is the devil, he is the demiurge, he is a false creator God, based off of my own life experiences. I was raised through hell all my life, in and out of boys' homes, juvenile joints, you name it, I was in it and I was out of it. And a lot of things I faced in life made me question who the hell was God and why wasn't he there for me? So, combination of all those things led me into Satanism, but it wasn't Anton LaVey where I started finding Satanism. It was in Aleister Crowley's Big Blue Brick, the ABA, Magic in Theory and Practice. I started studying that. Got into the Thelema aspect a little bit, but I couldn't accept the Book of the Law as the law. So I just started doing things solo. Well, another friend who I ended up meeting, I was working with, he was a LaVeyan-type Satanist, atheist Satanism. And he started, trying to explain things to me. He got me books by Peter Gilmore. And even though they are atheists in nature, when you read books like by Peter Gilmore or Michael Ford, you can see the theistic teachings within these books. I think they pretty much try to write it off as being atheist because that's a movement that happened in the 70s. But their teachings, they teach you that there is these gods like Yaldabaoth, the demiurge. There's angels, and then there's levels of the Kabbalah, and there's these spiritual worlds that you're supposed to tap into through your mind. But the Golden Dawn teaches it's not always in your mind. It's in what you do and how you move and things of that nature. So you combine all that together, and then you say, I'm going to do things my way. I don't need this false God. You just kind of just self-proclaimed yourself as a Satanist. And that's where I've been ever since.
No, I love it, man. You have some similarities to myself, which a lot of times I notice in one way, shape, or fashion or another that my guests and I have similar backgrounds. I think we're all kind of have those moments that bring us here. But Golden Dawn was pivotal for me. I mean, mine was kind of strange because I started out the very beginning as a Satanist. And, well, no, that isn't true. Let me take a step back. I started out Catholic as a Christian and was raised that way. But the first time I found any type of spirituality aside from what I had been raised to believe and indoctrinated into was Satanism. It was Levian Satanism. But I had practiced and had great results in ritual, and it was certainly changing my philosophical standpoint of life at a very young age. But then years later, I found the Golden Dawn. And it completely blew my mind open. I will say that both are very potent. Whether you're doing left-hand path workings or you're doing more right-hand path working with angels and working the Golden Dawn system, they're both very potent in their own rights. And I mean, Golden Dawn, as you said, is very elaborate rituals between the color schemes of everything and the movements and the timing. I always looked at the Golden Dawn as like a choreographed dance ceremony where you are moving into a certain way at a certain time, and it's a symphony of movements choreographed in a certain way that brings upon channeling your energy. And like you said, the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram and hexagram, the greater ritual of the pentagram and hexagram, very important to learn to neutralize the energies within your temple, within yourself. And a lot of people skip that these days. They don't understand the importance, where the reason that they would make a neophyte, practice that morning, noon, and night for a year straight before they would ever move on to anything else was because you were tempering the sword within the flames. You're tempering yourself, your mind, your psyche, your spirit, and the workings that you're doing, so that by the time that year is up, your movement is flawless. It's seamless. You're in the zone in every aspect, and I've always appreciated that. And they brought me on to a lot of higher concepts like assumption of God force, or the assumption of the Godhead. And there was years that went by that I didn't see anybody else really in a newer sense, author-wise, talking anything about assumption of the Godhead. And years later, when I came across Frater Barabbas, who was a guest on last season, he was the season finale, his books always talk about the assumption of Godhead and God force. And I always thought that was a very important thing, because in the left-hand path perspective of things, possession, assumption of God force or Godhead, you can assume that specific entity. You can summon Belial or Belial, and you can let him possess you and assume the Godhead and become Belial. And I talk about this all the time, whether you want to believe it's all inside of your psyche and you're unlocking the door and letting him out and you become him, or you want to believe that he's fully coming down or coming up and possessing, it doesn't matter. The outcome's the same. And I always found that the Golden Dawn really was tuned in. There's a lot of people that'll talk a lot of shit about the Golden Dawn and some of the questionable things in the late 1800s, early 1900s, and this and that. It doesn't matter. If it wasn't for the Golden Dawn, Western spirituality would be nowhere near what it is, both right-hand and certainly left-hand path. They helped formulate what it is that we love, even though they're completely on the other side of the road. So I definitely relate to you on that aspect. And, the Blue Brick, the Liber Abba, is a great book as well. But Crowley's work, for me, I always admired it. I always took a lot from it. But same as you, I couldn't fully buy in to Crowley's thought patterns. I think he's a genius. I do. But for most people, Crowley's work isn't going to resonate for them because most people will never first even understand it. And if they do understand it, they're not going to fully be able to work the systems as he did. And I mean, even some of the things he talked about, he didn't fully do. When we talk about, the workings of Abramelin the Mage, or Brahmalin, whichever version you want to say, what name, he never completed. He later on said he did, but there's documentation that he never completed the full ritual of Abramelin, which I think drove him crazy. Folks, if you're listening out there, there are very extensive rituals out there that are not just one night or 2 nights. They can be 6 months, they can be 10 months. And some of these rituals, if you don't complete them properly, does have the tendency to cause you to go mentally insane. And I think that was a big part of it, because after that happened, Crowley started to kind of change and became a little nuts towards the end there. But no, I completely resonate with what you're saying and where your path has led you. And I look at atheistic Satanism and theistic Satanism is both very important sides of the same coin. I feel like atheistic Satanism is the philosophical perspective of Satanism, and we should have both. We should look at it aside from ritual, where they do ritual, but they're mainly centered around the philosophical standpoint of Satanism. Then you flip over to the theistic side, and we certainly like the philosophical side as well, but we're focused on the results and focused on the connection of spirit and on ritual. And when you bring those together, then you're bringing the mysticism side of it and you're bringing the ritualistic perspective side of it together to converge into a very, very strong practice. And I think that they're both important.
Yeah, I agree totally. Crowley, when he stopped doing the Adrenaline, was because during that time, McGregor Mathers and A.E. Waite were basically fighting over the Golden Dawn, who was going to lead it. They started breaking off and doing like their own temples and whatnot. So Crowley felt like, he was called by Mathers, so he stopped in the middle of his ritual. He left, and for God knows how long, to help Mathers out. And you're right, he never came back. He never finished it. He never closed it, and that is why they have the folklore about the house, the Blokeshire, and how it's it's been a great thing of bad luck and evil things and weird things happening to it throughout the years, including the recent fire about 5 years ago or so that happened there. Crowley was one that was never really, in my opinion, from my studies of Crowley, was not one to ever really follow through 100% with what he was ever doing. And he had a lot of help from a lot of people. Most of his students actually wrote Liber Abba for him. He would tell them what he wanted, and then they wrote everything and put it together, and he published it. Another aspect that you're touching on about the Godhead, or the God form assumption, as I like to call it, I teach that in my coven. And it's an important thing to learn, because in the Golden Dawn, and you read the Neophyte ritual of the Golden Dawn, you'll notice that they're characters, and each character has a specific ancient Egyptian deity that they take on during ritual. And they do the God form assumption to bring out that certain deity that's needed for the ritual. And when they're in the room, they are no longer frater this or frater that. They are Osiris. They are Isis. They are, because they brought the self-possession of these gods into them so that they can manipulate their energy upon the neophyte during the ritual. So you're doing more than just, making a basic connection with deities. When you practice things like God form assumption, you are becoming the God that you are assuming. You grow him from the inside of you until he grows outside of you and you're looking through their eyes. And then they take over. You allow them to take over for whatever purposes are necessary. And a lot of people don't really know that today. And it's something that I believe should continue to be studied and practiced, as well as the middle pillar exercise.
Oh, the middle pillar is absolutely potent, man. I think it's one of the strongest rituals you can do. It's had the power to make me absolutely trip balls naturally, where I've had strong sessions of the middle pillar where after I open my eyes afterwards, the whole room's vibrating in frequency, and I'm literally like oscillating in my room. It always has been a very, very potent ritual that I don't give a shit what path you're on or what your ideology or belief is. You should have some version of the middle pillar that you practice on a regular basis.
Yeah, I have a version of it in one of my rituals called the Hand of Destruction, and I call it the Cross of Satan because it uses the Kliptoth instead of the Tree of Life, because the middle pillar is actually the middle pillar of the Tree of Life that
Correct.
You're calling down into yourself and at the chakra points, and then you're manipulating that energy. You're causing that energy to move faster, slower, visualizing in color and whatever else. And the energy that you're receiving from that is the positive energy of existence, whereas using the Kliptoth in the same manner is using the negative energy. And how I look at positive and negative is, for every negative, there is a positive result, and for every positive, there can be a negative result. Let's say like a positive is two people falling in love, and the negative of that is one becoming obsessed with the other to the point to where they're controlling, and it can lead to a abusive relationship. And let's say you take something like a negative, like a forest catching fire. It's terrible. All the trees are burning, the vegetation, the animals, everything is being burned. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of, feet or whatever is being burned to ash. But the positive of that is that all becomes new feed for the new life that will grow after.
No, I absolutely agree with that. And it's very strong to use Klipothic, path workings and symbolism. Gary said it right here. He put, let me throw it up on the screen. He said, gotta know the dark to see the light. And you do, and vice versa. I don't believe that necessarily one should only work one side of it. I think that working the Sephirotic tree and going through the correspondences of the Tree of Life is extremely powerful. And you don't have to necessarily believe that when you get to Keter that you're going to, re-emerge with the ultimate God force and be gone. You can work your way up to that and release the bonds of obstruction that are held by the influences of the Tree of Life and the Sephiroth. But if you don't do the Kliptoth, you're going to be unbalanced to the left or to the right, whatever you want to say. Let's say the right. You're going to be unbalanced to the right because now you've cleared those paths, but the left is weighing you down. So just like the opposite, you should go through the Klipothic workings, but you have a lot of left-hand path practitioners only go through the Klipothic workings, and it's immense, and it'll fuck with you. I mean, there's people I've known that have started it that somehow mysteriously died. Something happened to them where either they went insane and killed themselves, or something naturally in life took them out, and I believe it was because of that. I've seen several people literally go batshit crazy from working the Kliptoth if you're doing it in deeper manners. But if you do make it through, you should always look at the right side as well, because now you're unbalanced. You have to. It's a constant struggle in all magic, folks, to have equilibrium. It's so easy to be swayed.
It's like taking this vapor right here, okay? In order for this vapor to work, it needs two batteries. It needs a positive and negative charge. If it just has one, it's not going to work. But as soon as you add the other to it, as soon as you add this positive to the negative or vice versa, then the damn thing comes on and works. And that is exactly what is the deal with ritual magic. And the reason why people that you've known, I've known, that have only worked one or the other, when you've only worked the light side, all you become is light and lightheaded, and you're on this, basically like how Christians are. You're on a narrow mindset that everything has to be that way. But then you have, like you said, you have this weight, and you're like, well, I'm weak on this side. So you go into the other side, and you start studying the dark side. It's to know your enemy type shit, too. But yeah, you have to have a combination of both. If you just take out the Christian dogma of it all and just look at it as being power, and that's what you're after, but you have to go through these steps, these trials, these tribulations in order to achieve a certain level of power, then everything would be, we wouldn't have all these fights all the time between atheistic and theistics and Christians and Satanists and all this, if people just took away the dogma and just focused on it in a scientific manner of trying to empower your inner self through the practice of magic, which is what the great work is.
And I think that, that's the problem, is too many people. I'm a huge mystic. I've actually told so many people over the years that I'm a mystic first and a practitioner second, but it's not to say that I don't practice a lot. I spend a lot of time in ritual. That's like my whole life. But I very much love the lore, the theology. I even like religions, even though I don't like religion, if that makes sense. I like studying the religions and how they came up with these structures, though I think religion's bullshit. So it's something I like, the mystic side, but the problem is you need to learn to love that if you want to love it, but separate it from practice. Separate it from your internal growth. There are reasons that knowing the mechanics of the world and spirituality on a mystic level is very empowering, and that actually will help you grow as well, even if you never step into the circle and do ritual. Just like you can step into the circle all the time and do ritual and grow exponentially with that without knowing the mystic side. But once again, just like left and right, or just like mystic and ritual, bringing it together, ritual and practice, I should say, or theory and practice, it's very important to have the two of them because it'll do something to you. But I think that a lot of people get caught up in the lore. So they look at the Sephirotic tree, they look at the right-hand side of it, and they're like, oh, Yahweh and Christianity and God. Fuck all that. Drop all of that baggage. Drop all of the stories and look at it, as Augustine said, you are looking at 10 spheres, or 11 if you want to consider Da'ath, and you're saying these are kingdoms of energy that exist naturally in this matrix of reality. And through the use of them and path workings and understanding and incorporating them into myself and overcoming and balancing them, I'm going to raise my vibration as a spiritual being and as a physical being to new heights and new levels. You don't have to believe in Yahweh at all. I don't give a shit about that. Those are still naturally there, just like the angels. You can summon the angels as someone who is a devout Christian and have, amazing results. Or you can be a left-hand path practitioner and summon the angels and have absolutely wild results. So someone will say, well, how does a devil worshiper get results from an angel? Because the angels don't care. If you follow the formula, if you conjure the spirit properly and follow the rules, they will do the work that is asked of them. Your religious belief doesn't matter to them. It's only within religion does it tell you that the religion matters. Think about that. The religion is telling you that the religion matters. No one else is. The spirits don't give a shit. So just like in the Ars Goetia and the Lemegeton and all the other books like Grimoire Virum, these books were written from Christian perspectives. Well, then why would a Christian have so much dominance over a demonic spirit? Because just like a left-hand path practitioner, it's the same thing. You're summoning and using if you want to call it scientific, a scientific formula, a mathematical formula to get resonance from these spirits. So we need to stop looking, folks, at everything as right and left, as black and white, and as Gary was saying a second ago, or John actually was saying, let me throw that up there, black and white is gray. The balance of both is key, and it is key because you can spend your whole life fighting against the right-hand side if you're on the left. Or you can say, there's treasures on both sides, and I want to unlock and pick both of those chests and see what treasures they hold. And not give a shit about what people name it, what gods and names they put to it, because at the end of the day, these forces are internal and external, as I've explained before, and we give them different names, different deific masks, but they are natural energies that exist that we work with. Just like the Greeks, whenever they gave lightning the name of Zeus. Well, lightning is a true force. It's out there. It's strong. It's powerful. It can be harnessed and it can kill. But you can call it Zeus. You can call it whatever the hell you want. Doesn't mean that's actually what lightning is. It just means that's the name of the force that they gave it. Now, through ritual, you can unlock parts of your mind that bring that to life. But we need to stop this argument of theistic and atheistic. We need to stop this argument of right hand and left hand. If it works for you, if it's powerful, and it produces results, is that not all that matters? I think it is.
Right. Well, here's two things for you. One, in the Bible, God says that he has put man above the angel. So therefore, we have dominion over the angels and the demons because we are man. So if you want to look at it from that Christian perspective of where do you get the authority to even try to summon these things? Well, it's a God-given authority. Regardless if we hate God or not, if he's the one that created us and he says that he put us above all other creatures and above the angels, then we have dominance over all that which is spiritual. And the other thing about learning both sides, there's nothing wrong with it, because even Satan, when he met up with Jesus in the 40 days and 40 nights, he was quoting scripture to Jesus left and right. He knows the Bible. Why does he know the Bible? Because you need to know thy enemy. So yeah, it's magic. No matter if it's from the left or from the right, if you are practicing a ritual magic, you're practicing magic.
Exactly.
Regardless. So yeah, drop the labels, get rid of the dogma, and just do the magic. Do the ritual. Because you're not doing it for anybody else, but for yourself in the end. You're chasing the philosopher's stone. You're trying to turn the lead of your soul into gold. That is the ultimate achievement for any and all practitioners, regardless if you're left or right. Now there are things where it's viewed as, if you're a right-hand person, that the magic that they do is all, healing and good hippie vibes and crap like that. Well, no, it's not, because there are plenty of magicians out there. Nick Farrell, Pat Zilowski, who was the other guy that's out there? Ottoman, what's his name? I can't think of his last name. But there's a lot of magicians that are right-hand path. But if you cross them, they will hex and curse you, and they will destroy you. Does that make them satanic? No, it just makes them powerful magicians, because they don't look at the left and right. They just use the magic, negative and positive.
Well, it goes back to, people saying that, there's no such thing as good and bad magic. It's the practitioner who chooses to do what they will through their will with that magic. And that's shown in left-hand path workings where people use to heal someone. But that's also shown in things like the Sword of Moses, where they specifically talk about healing and enhancement to your finance and to your status. But they also, within the Sword of Moses, talk about curses to kill and smite down your enemy using angels. So that's what a lot of people don't understand, because people don't often do the research. And that's one thing that I have with all practitioners out there, but I will talk about our own for a moment. That is one problem that I've always had with the left-hand path, and especially Satanism and Satanists, is that a lot of them have such strong beliefs, but they don't build their beliefs off of their own research. They build their beliefs actually off of dogma. So they'll start to talk about religion, they'll start to talk about the Bible, they'll start to talk about Jesus and God and Yahweh and angels and all of these things, and they talk from such a standpoint of, I am against all that, and I understand that, because when you first start out, and I think for most everyone that first breaks away from being indoctrinated as a child into Christianity and separating, we want to get so far away from it that we just blaspheme anything that we can that's on the right. And there needs to be that moment, because you're pushing it so hard to cause that chasm between it. But then after you get through that anarchist stage, I think then there needs to be the stage of research and diving in deep to, as you said, fully understand your enemy. You were raised this way. You maybe don't resonate with that. But let's go ahead and build this chasm between it. Let's separate ourselves on the other side, and then from a distance, with binoculars and a vantage point, let's watch the enemy. Let's study the enemy. Let's see why those stories have been written that way. Let's find the truths and the lies. Let's find what composes and makes up that belief system and structure, not only to understand your enemy, but then to also better understand yourself, because there are still pieces that should resonate with you. As a devil worshiper, as a diabolist, I will tell you that I oftentimes post things from the Bible. I oftentimes will relate things to Christianity, and people say, why do you do that? Because even your enemies are intelligent. Don't ever underestimate your enemies. Sometimes the things that are in those books are very powerful, even if it's not the religion that I belong to. And it doesn't mean that we should shun it and throw it in the trash just because we want to be so anarchist to it. We should then want to use those things and indoctrinate that into our practice. I take everything from Hermeticism to Martinism to everything in between and churn it up into a pot and take what resonates and discard the rest to formulate my path and practice. So for the Satanists out there, for the left-hand path practitioners out there, please just dig deeper. And that's one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, is being a leader within the satanic community. I speak for myself on this part. It can be frustrating. It can be frustrating for the fact that you have so many people that sincerely want to learn from you. They want to grow in their practice, and they want to experience and expand and become a higher intelligent and higher conscious individual. But then you have so many that even will come to you for help, but then don't want to listen to a fucking word you say because they want to just blaspheme. You're like, well, maybe there's a point on the X, Y, and Z, and you'll mention, like I said, you'll use a biblical passage, and I'm only speaking for myself, to enlighten them to a higher truth. And they're like, oh, you just used a biblical passage. I thought you were a real Satanist. And they'll use shit like that on me. I thought you were a real Satanist. What the fuck is a real Satanist? What defines your real Satanism? Because there's about 20 different branches of Satanism. Which one's real? Or are they all real? Or is it just terms we put on something to give self-grandizement, an ego stroke, and do self-masturbatory acts? Because I think that at the end of the day ends up being everybody wants to ego stroke themselves instead of taking time to learn. So for yourself and from your perspective, Augustine, how is it having so many people following you now, wanting to know, wanting to learn, wanting to grow, but only maybe a quarter of them actually being sincere?
Well, it's like this. If you ask me for my help, and I give it to you, and you disregard it, that's your fucking problem. You just lost out on correcting something that you needed correcting, or chasing after something that you were wanting. But if I tell you, hey, do this, 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 and this, and you don't, oh well. But as I've grown over the last year, like you at one time, I was out in 2016 through 2018. Back then, it was called the Abyss, the Black Abyss Serpent, or something like that. And I was on Facebook, and I had like 5,000 followers then. It's also when I first aired my very first ritual on YouTube, which now my YouTube has a bunch of them. But people would come, and it's like, today's minds, even the 30-year-olds, if there's not an app for that, they don't want to do it. They'll come to you and be like, hey, how can I do this, this, and this? And you try to break it down to them, but it's like their ADHD just takes a hold of them within the first minute, and they don't do shit with it. Well, that's on them. I don't care. I gave the advice. Okay, whatever you did with it or didn't do with it, that's on you. Now, there are people who will come to me, and they're sincere, and I know they're sincere, and I know they'll do the work. And either when they do the work and it works for them, two things either happen. One, they're ecstatic. Oh, that was great. It worked. It helped me get my desire from the aether into the reality. I really appreciate it. Or they leave because they're so fucking freaked out that what I told them to do actually worked. So when it comes to that kind of stuff, yeah, I'll give the advice. They do with it what they want, or they don't do anything at all. That's not my problem. I gave the gift. What are you going to do with it? It's up to you. Now, I never looked at myself as trying to be a leader. People call me one. But, all I'm doing is sharing my thoughts, my experiences, and people tend to listen to it because I don't sugarcoat shit. I don't ride the coattails of other authors. Everything I say, I try to be 100% original because, that's what it's really about. I mean, being yourself, being who you are, practicing the way you're going to practice is how you receive the information from beyond back. You know what I mean? Whatever you put out is how it's going to come back. And I appreciate people that have chosen to follow me and that have chosen to support me. I just say that. Let's say that word. I have a lot of supporters, not just followers. I have people who support what I do, who appreciate what I do, and therefore it makes me very appreciative of them. I treat everybody the same. I give everybody one chance to be true. And I've been around for 51 years, and I've been around in some bullshit. I've been everywhere from the ghetto to the projects to where I live now, and I live very comfortably these days. I'm very successful. I have a successful business. My wife is very successful, and I live in a very high-end part of town. So I've seen it all, I've heard it all, and I'll see it coming a mile away. People will start trying to bullshit me. I call them on it, they leave. Facebook is just amazing for that. As soon as, there was a guy not just recently, Naquam somebody or another, he was a sheep in wolf's clothing. He came on the scene a couple months back, started making friends with a bunch of left-hand people, myself included. He had a good front, but what he was doing was, while he was being your friend, he was getting information from you about you, and then he decided at a certain point to turn around and start slandering and slamming people and trying to call us all fakes and frauds. I saw it coming, and when it happened to me, when he decided he was going to turn on me, well, the community banded together, and we fried his ass, spiritually. So, yeah, I'll see it coming. But you lead people who want to be led, who want to listen, who want to follow, who want to study, and you'll recognize that as time moves on, who's doing what, who's actually listening, who's paying attention, who's doing the work. And then there are those that don't. Like you said, a lot of them are doing it because they think it's hip. They want to be cool. To them, it's like going to a rock show, or a metal show. They get to put on the makeup and the leather and the studs, and as long as they're hailing Satan, man, they think they're in the right place. That's good for them. I don't care. But if you're going to come to me for help, I'm going to give it, but I'm going to expect you to do the work. And if you don't, well, that's your loss, not mine.
I think that's, and you just said something I think definitely is a part of it. When we use the word, so we'll say the occult scene, the music scene, the such and such scene. Well, let's take that second word, scene. That's what it is. And you always have to look that there's something behind that. There's the music, the true music, the artistry of making the music, and then there's the music scene of people who follow it and talk and jibber jam about this and that. Same thing with occultism, folks. There is the true workings, the practice, the rituals, the resonance, the growth, and then there's a scene of people who follow that. Now, we need to understand right off the bat that 95% of the people who follow it, that talk about it, are full of shit. And I've been saying this for years, and I've been very blunt on it, that just like musicians, I once was a very popular musician, was known very well, did very well for myself. But I would constantly come into contact with people who would follow my work or be fans and followers of mine or secret haters, and there was a lot of those, and they would talk about being a great musician themselves. Well, truth be told, they were fucking horrible. They weren't good musicians. They were never going to be anything. They never went to the studio. But it's easy to tell people like, oh, yeah, man, I'm dope, and I work with such and such and such and such, but then they never have the links to prove it. Same thing with occultism. I meet Satanists and left-hand path practitioners and diabolists and just mystics in general and all kinds of different people within this scene. I'm doing the little bunny ears, the scene, and they will talk about all that they know and that they've experienced. But there's so many indicators by what they're saying that they've never actually done anything that they're saying. One of the things, and I was talking to someone about this either earlier today or yesterday, my days blend. I think it was earlier today, where there's an ego that goes on for a lot of people. And that's why Israel Regardie actually talked about being psychoanalyzed by someone once you really get into heavy amounts of magic. The reason that he said this is because once you start to experience any type of manifestation of results, things coming to fruition, start to realize your own personal power, what happens is the God complex. You instantly are like, I've changed this and this in the world. I am the Messiah. You instantly go from being a fucking nobody to you caused $400 to fall in your lap when you needed money, and now you're fucking the Messiah walking earth. And then it just builds and builds and builds. We need to take a step back from that and realize that, no, this is just a formula that we followed. It's just like, if you go to work, you're going to get paid. If you do magic, you're going to reap the results. There's things into this. But people don't, a lot of times, actually do the work. So there's two sides of it. You have the people doing it who lose themselves because they got a little bit of results instead of staying humble and having equilibrium like we talked about. And then you have the other side of it who are dreamers, who, as Augustine said, will ask you for help with this and that, and they'll never follow it because they're never actually doing the work. So when you say that there's a ritual I need you to do, it's going to take an hour and a half. You're going to have to meditate beforehand and clear your aura. You're going to have to light candles and say these specific invocations 20 times back to back. You're going to have to then scry deeply into the mirror and go into self-hypnagogic trance states and connect with the spirit. Then you're going to have to give the license to depart, and then you're going to have to jot down in your manuscript or your grimoire what it is that you experienced. And all of these things, they're looking at you like, holy shit, man, that's a lot of work. And you're like, yeah, what did you think this was? Like, it's like anything else in life. You want to be good at music, you're going to work your fucking ass off to be good at music. You want to be a good boxer, you're going to spend a shit ton of time in the ring. Same thing with magic, folks. If you want to be good at magic or spirituality, you're going to read your ass off. You're going to research. You're going to step a lot of times into the circle and do magic. Sometimes it's going to produce absolutely nothing. A lot of times it's going to produce nothing. But then as you refine it, you will get better and better. You don't just step into the circle or just step into the ring, never practicing before in your life, and expect that it's going to go your way. You step in with another fighter and you've never fought before, you're going to get the shit kicked out of you. That's how it works. The same thing with the spirits. And I call a lot of you folks out there because I know that you're fucking ego stroking. You're trying to say, oh, I summoned Belial and he walked in and he was 15 feet tall and he talked with thunderous voice. And you're saying all this fucking like theater Hollywood style shit that can happen, but most likely it didn't happen because you've never even taken the time to get to know yourself through meditation and through trance to ever get to have an interaction like that with a spirit. So please, if you're truly out there wanting to learn magic, do it the right way, spend the time, put in the work, and you'll reap the results. Nothing comes without work. There's always going to be a lot of people who tell big tales and stories about what they've done without earning it because there's a lot of people who are dreamers. You know, do you want to be a dreamer or you want to be the people who actually do it? And once you do it, shut the fuck up about it. That's all I'm asking. I don't care if you had a successful result. I have them all the time. I don't need to go tell everybody about it because no one gives a shit. No one should. It's mine. It's me. It's my personal thing that I carry with me. So that's something that people out there should think about. Now, I did want to jump back to a comment here. Let me see if I can find it. There's another one here. So true, magic is also a flow of current of energy and conjuring up. Yes, it is. Now, some people said about the Bible being full of practitioners. Well, absolutely, it was practitioners. It's riddled with it. What the fuck you think Moses was? Moses was a sorcerer. I mean, it's written. What we don't realize is we think like the Bible's such like, oh, it's pussy shit. We don't follow that. If you read it, it is full of black magic. It's full of regular magic. It's full of curses. It's full of just all kinds of wild shit going on. I think it's a great story. I love reading it. But we have to understand, folks, that what you are considering the Bible is not the actual Bible. In 325 AD, the Council of Nicaea changed the Bible. They edited it. They took a lot of shit out of it. They added a lot of stuff in it that was never in it. They decided what was going to be in it, what wasn't going to be in it. They reworded things. They changed things for propaganda. And a lot of what people refer to now, well, the Bible never said that. Shut the fuck up. You don't know what the Bible said because you're reading the 85th version of it that was translated 85 times. And as we talked about on other shows, and as Bal Kadmon, a good friend of mine, recently released his course on it, think about the last 2,000 years of people summoning Lucifer. Now, I'm not saying Lucifer isn't showing up at this point, but I'm saying that Lucifer never existed as an actual figure because that's been proven not only from Bulkhead Moan, but from a lot of people, that was 100% a fucking wrong translation. Pure fact. That's not a thought. That's a fact. That was a wrong translation. It was talking about Nebuchadnezzar, and he was the king of Babylon, and he is a fallen star. Oh, how you have fallen, great morning star, son of the dawn. It was never an angel. There never was the fall of Lucifer because he was so prideful that he wanted to sit on the throne above God. That is actually a mixing of Samael. Samael actually wanted to raise himself in one of the passages above the throne of God, not Lucifer. So people start to not actually research this shit, and they just go off of what he said, she said, they said, he said, and that formulates your ideology of your practice. So what I tell people out there is please do your due diligence. If you truly have respect for this field, if you truly honor it, then do it the right way. Stop going on what everybody else says. Figure your shit out, and you'll grow from it. But don't just do things because the newest book says it. Look into the history of the books. I say to go back to the old books. There's a lot of great newer authors, but I don't read most of them. Go back to the folks a long time ago. Go back to the Manly Halls. Go back to the Eliphas Levies. Go back to the people who were writing mysticism and magic before it became a trendy thing. Back whenever you could be burned at the fucking stake for writing it. Not when you can do it now to get Facebook likes. I think that should be taken into consideration. If I'm willing to give you a manuscript that could literally have me burned alive, there's a good chance that what I'm writing is definitely real shit, because if I'm going to die, I might as well give you the raw end of it. Today, if I can write a book with AI intelligence in the next 3 weeks and release it, do you really believe in it? Something to think about. So I want to jump into, Augustine, with you starting the online Abysmal, Coven of the Abysmal Serpent, how has that been received? I've been seeing it growing, exponentially very, very quickly. What is your plans with it? I mean, I think obviously, as you said, your idea never was to become a leader. It's funny how that happens. You're just doing you. You're being true to yourself and true to your work. And then if you do that, they come. And obviously that has happened for you. So what do you think now, looking at it, seeing where it's gotten to and where obviously it'll be in the next couple of years, what do you see for the future?
Well, I want to keep it as it is. It's a learning center. It's a free learning center. It's really not an organization because it's just a Facebook page. I don't claim it as an organization. I don't claim it as a church or anything else. I started it because I wanted two things. I wanted like-minded people to communicate with, and I wanted to get my philosophy of Satanism out there. And it has grown really fast, like you said, because I feel it's because I'm true to myself and I'm true to the people I'm talking to. Everything I write isn't always necessarily something I've studied. It's divine inspiration from the Father, from Lord Satan himself. He, at one time in another life, like you, I was a musician. I was a heavy metal singer for a well-known heavy metal band act here in the Akron and Cleveland, Ohio area. 2008, I was in talks with FTS Records. Yeah, FTS Records. It was an independent label about getting the record contract. But unfortunately, shit happened and I couldn't, I'd lost the contract. It was a thing to do with my family at the time, and I ended up kind of like having some major issues mentally, and I lost the record contract. And I stopped performing in 2008. So the thing about being a musician, I totally lost the train of thought. Let me scratch that. Let's get back to the leader thing. I want to see it continue to be as it is. It's an educational center. People get to come in there. They get to ask questions. They get to be themselves. They get to learn. I have like a ton of free shit, PDFs that people can download in my file section of every type of satanic thought, magic, witchcraft, Jewish Kabbalism, all this stuff. I just want to see it continue to grow. People continue to have the camaraderie that they've had. helping each other out. I don't have the answers for everything, and there are a lot of good minds that are a part of it, like yourself. You are. I don't know you very well. We're getting to know each other, but I can tell from a lot of your writings and from your shows that you know your shit. So if I don't have an answer for something, I can direct someone to you that maybe you could possibly answer their question. Or if you can't answer the question, you know somebody that could possibly help. So that's what I want to keep it as. I want to keep it as a learning center and as a place where like-minded people can come and not feel ashamed to be a Satanist or a witch, and to be able to express themselves. I just ask that the people that are involved to be very open-minded. I have original rituals that I've written for the Coven. I would like people to try these rituals because I've had great success with them. And there's a lot of 101 out there. So many books with all the same shit you've been reading for 30 years. It's all 101 crap. What I tried to create was not 101, but it has a lot of, basic elements and advanced elements. And I feel that people do these rituals or try these rituals. They don't have to, it's not something they have to do. It's something that is available for them if they want to do. To try the rituals and kind of give some feedback about them. Were they successful for you? Did you have any type of interactions, whatever? And the Abysmal Serpent is, it's just a place for all Satanists to come and to be Satanists. And I hopefully would like to see it grow, of course, with more members and branch out. Maybe in a couple years, maybe down the road when I retire from my normal job, I might start an offline thing, but that's not what I'm trying to do. And I don't charge anybody anything because I'm successful in my personal life. I don't need the money. I don't need people paying me for anything, for my advice or for how I see things or to be a part of the Coven. Hell, I even gave out a free membership certificate, that people can print themselves. They can put their name on it, print it. It's very well made. It's an Abysmal Serpent certificate of membership. All I ask that they do for that is to do the initiation ritual, which is the PDF is in the file section, and the video to follow me with is in the featured section of the Abysmal Serpent. So, yeah, I want to see it grow and continue to be what it is.
And you've done a good job with that because, like you said, there's a lot of file folks. And I have someone here, Tanya. You said, where's the website? Now, we talked about two different things, so I'm not sure which one you're questioning. But if you're talking about what we're talking about right now, which is Augustine's online coven, that is Satanic Coven of the Abysmal Serpent. If you search that on Facebook, Satanic Coven of the Abysmal Serpent, you'll find the group page. You can add it. They'll add you to it. A lot of great knowledge there. There is a lot of free PDF files of rituals, of different reading material that you can find. You can be yourself and post on there. You can interact with others. It's a safe haven for people of left-hand path modalities to be able to come together and talk to one another in an unbiased, unjudged way. If anybody's being an absolute dick to you, obviously Augustine or one of the other moderators will kick them out. They don't handle that type of shit. Everybody's there to be friendly and learn from one another. You don't have to agree with one another, but everybody is friendly and at least accepts that someone else might have a different view than you. But there are rituals on there to try, and as Augustine said, there is a certificate that you can give yourself, which is a great, honestly, a smart thing to do, because a lot of people in the left-hand path, whether in the past, now, in the future, whatever, have felt like loners, have felt like they don't fit into the rest of the world. And they're looking for that place to call home. And if they find that place to call home, they want to hold on to it, because as misfits, once you find that place, you're like, holy shit, I feel accepted for the first time in my life. And I know that when I found LaVey's work when I was 14 years old, long ass time ago, that's what did it for me. Whenever I came across his work, I always felt like I never fit in with any human being in the world, and no one understood me. And then all of a sudden I read his words, and I'm like, holy shit, well, this guy gets me. And that's how I discovered Satanism. That's what a lot of people are finding now, because you got to understand the new generation. might know about LaVey, might have heard of them, but some of them might not have. They're coming onto the scene with the Arundel Overmans and the Michael Fords and the people of this generation who are their LaVey. So when they come together and they start to discover this, it gives them that feeling of, holy shit, someone understands me. And that's what the online coven is. So as Augustine said, you can go on there, do the initiation ceremony to initiate yourself, have that experience, have that resonance, and then once you have that experience, you're now a member of the coven. And you can certainly, get yourself that card and, post it proudly that you are now part of the family. So look up that link, Tanya. I have something else here from Merrick. Merrick, thank you for tuning in. I know that you are over in the UK and it's late there. Thank you for always jumping in and supporting me. I appreciate it. Yes, there was a Saint Lucifer. In fact, the church actually kind of tried to make him vanish because Lucifer means light bearer, means, intelligence, which means, higher levels of consciousness, but it never meant an angel. And it was actually used within Christianity. And that's why it was in the original translation whenever they made the Vulgate, that they used the word Lucifer as light bearer, because it stood for, Nebuchadnezzar was looked at as someone who could have had the world in a great position, and he went against what they believed. He turned to the fallen star. He went the opposite direction. So they were saying he was bright, he was this luminous being that had fallen. Same thing with how they looked at that word in a lot of other modalities. Now, Saint Lucifer was the same thing. He took that name on proudly because it was something that I am a saint of illumination. But then later on, that's when Lucifer became the fallen angel, and they used this propaganda. And that happened with John Milton in Paradise Lost, and it happened with Dante's Inferno and everything else that Balcadmon talks about in this course. Now, Merrick, you said, sounds good, I'll sign up. I think that was referring to Balcadmon's course. So if you go to occultcourses.com, Balcadmon, Augustine was saying there's not a lot of good authors these days. A lot of it's just the same run-of-the-mill bullshit. He is one of the people I co-sign more than any other occultist in the world right now. That he has released probably 60-some books. They're not just thrown together quickly. He deep dives. His courses are some of the most intense and most well-thought-out courses there are. He speaks 9 or so different languages, and he translates everything from ancient texts to bring you the courses that he brings today. So check out the Luciferian course where it talks about the truth behind it, but also check out some of the others, the 72 Demons of the Name, where he goes deep into how the Goetia happened, goes deep into who these beings are, and some of the most elaborate history behind them. And then he has the 72 Angels of the Shemhemic Fordish Angel System, which is an amazing course as well. It tells you the days of the year to summon them, what 19-minute window is best to summon them, what incense to use, everything. Things that you can find in the grimoires, if you really do your research, it's all brought together in one course. So check out Balcadmon. Now, real quick, What's that?
You need to send me that link.
I will, man. He's fucking phenomenal. I mean, honestly, he is an academic. So, like, folks, to give you an example, when I'm researching and doing things, I look for academic minds like Jake Stratton-Kent, like Dr. Stephen Skinner, like Joseph Peterson, like David Ranke. You got Alexander Cummins. You have Balcadmon. People who... some of them are practitioners, some of them are just, academics, but they are deep diving into the workings. David Rankin is going to be on the show coming up next month. He is someone who just released the Grimoire Encyclopedia, 2 volumes. It's like 1,600 pages of some of the most elaborate grimoire correspondences ever. He brings every grimoire and everything you could ever want to know about grimoire magic all together in 2 volumes of this book that just was released this year. He is one of the pivotal members of this scene. That's the shit that you guys should be studying. Stop following UPG, unverified personal gnosis. Stop following these authors that just write fucking, fantasy occultism. That is a real thing these days, guys. Fantasy occultism. When you look at people like E.A. Coetting, when you look at people like that, they're writing books, and I don't give a fuck if that offends anybody or not. I've never cared about your feelings. That is shit that when he talks about he rose from obsidian crimson glass embers and he stood 30, like I was saying earlier, that's the shit that's not real, guys. That's not real occultism. That's horror fantasy mixed with occultism to sell you guys something that gives you a fucking hard-on when you read it, but when you step into the ritual circle, you get no results because it's not real magic. So
You gotta
stop
watch
following
out
that shit.
for copycats too.
What's that?
So you gotta watch out for the copycats too.
Well, and there's that
Like
going on. I mean, people read three different books from three different authors, and then they take those three books and they make it into one book. And then they release the same shit that those other three people just read. And that's been churning. And now with the age of AI, it's terrifying because you can literally go on to something like ChatGPT and you can create a book. You could literally sit down and spend 2-3 weeks and have AI write you a book. You go through and you edit it. You compilate it into one book, and then you release it out there as one book that you wrote, but really you never wrote it. You were the editor for AI writing that book, and that's the age we're in. So that's why I said you need to go back to the roots once upon a time, or to those people who got degrees in this shit, who really take pride in it. Now, before we go much further, please send me the link. I will send you the link. Message me. Like I said, I don't know which of the two you're talking about, but I'll send you the group link for Augustine's group, and I'll send you Ball's link. I'll send Augustine you the link for Ball's courses as well. But let's take a quick break here, folks, and let's talk a little bit about some of our sponsors. So let's go to share screen here. And let's first go to this one, and we'll be right back after these messages on Knights of the Nephilim. Knights of the Nephilim podcast would like to thank our sponsor, Goetic Impressions. Goetic Impressions is a company dedicated to the faithful creation of advanced ritual tools by following grimoire guidelines as closely and as feasibly as they can in the modern world. Follow them on Instagram, Facebook, or their website, goeticimpressions.com, to stay informed on new projects and limited-time items that they roll out frequently. For listeners of Knights of the Nephilim podcast, you can use the promo code KOTN10 for 10% off of your overall order. Again, that is KOTN10 for 10% off of your overall order. And make sure you check out their Facebook, Instagram, and website. Once again, the website is www.goeticimpressions.com. Again, that is goeticimpressions.com for absolutely everything for your ritual needs. Fantastic items, quality items, greatly priced, quick shipping. Can't speak highly enough about these guys. Absolutely wonderful team, and I'm glad to have partnered with them. Thanks, guys. Knights of the Nephilim podcast would like to thank our sponsor, Arcane Arcane Services. Arcane Arcane Services is a husband and wife duo comprised of Baron and Baronessa Aragni. With over 40 years of practical experience, they are masters of the occult arts through various practices and paradigms, such as necromancy, high magic, black witchcraft, and more. They are published authors under their own publishing house, the Arcane Press. They offer books, courses, spell work, consultations, ritual tools, and more. All of their products are handmade of the highest quality material and empowered through ancient rites. If you wish to know more about them or their business, or you require their services, please feel free to contact them at aragniarcaneservices.com. That is Aragni, ARAIGNEE, arcaneservices.com. And if you use promo code KOTN, you will get 10% off of your overall order or purchase as a special highlight of them being a sponsor of this show. Thank you so much, guys. All right, guys. I am going to read the next one by hand, and we'll go ahead here and see if I can share this screen. Let's go to that one and hit share, and let's get rid of that. Let's go ahead and go there. All right. Little Shop of Lilith is a metaphysical and occult shop run in Butler, Pennsylvania. Natasha has been a practicing witch for 2 decades and started Little Shop of Lilith in 2020, with the brick and mortar opening at the end of the year of 2021. What started as intention oils for friends quickly expanded into an online business, and now what regulars lovingly refer to as a local cult. With a background in education and mental health, Natasha's main goal was to be able to offer affordable mental health services to her community. She is a certified emotional intelligence life coach and is currently obtaining her master's in metaphysical sciences and spiritual counseling. Aside from the many products that the shop offers, clients can get counseling, mentorship, intuitive energy work, tarot readings, spell work, and more. There are many different activities monthly, from group rituals to one-on-one classes, full courses, and guest speakers. Little Shop of Lilith encourages people to step into their own power. staying unapologetically authentic in a mission of understanding the integration of both light and dark in the soul, and taking a no bullshit approach to both magic and healing. And you can check them out on Facebook and Instagram at Little Shop of Lilith. And we want to thank them for all that they do for the show, and also Natasha for being my creative director with the radio and all that she does to help me run and keep this machine going. So thank you very much. Thank you to Goetic Impressions, and also thank you to Aragni Arcane Services. And if we have time, we'll jump into a few of our other sponsors this evening as well, but I wanted to give a shout out to those three for the time being. And if you're listening in right now and you've missed any of the episode, don't fret. You can jump back and listen to it from the beginning once we end. This will be recorded both as audio on Spotify and iTunes, or the visual component on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. Though Instagram is only live, it doesn't let them record video. You can check it out on YouTube and Facebook after the fact and watch the video. There is the video component to it. We do want to thank each and everybody that's listening out there, not only for listening, but especially for the ones out there that are commenting and interacting with the show. We appreciate you. It's great to always get great seeds of knowledge of occultism out there for the people that are searching, and we appreciate that. Once again, I will throw out there shamelessly, because I'm not afraid to do it, I will throw out there the Buy Me a Coffee. If you love the show, you love what we're doing, use the QR code, donate $1, donate $10. Shit, donate everything you have. I don't care. I just appreciate you doing so. Like I said, your support gets me show to show, episode to episode, and your coffee gets me through each and every day, and I really, truly appreciate it. Thank you so much. There's a lot of expenses to run the video, the audio, and everything else I do. In fact, the expenses certainly outweigh how much I make per year on this show, so I lose money. But it's because I love bringing you guys and girls out there this information. But to help soften that blow, your donations certainly help. So if you're out there and you want to support, use the QR code below. If you are just tuning in, we've been hanging out for the last hour with Augustine Moriar. He is the leader of the Coven of the Abysmal Serpent. It is a Satanic Coven online that you can join, learn the rituals, talk to other people, and be a part of a family, as we talked about earlier. It's very important to have a safe haven to go to, because there's a lot of places out there you're going to be judged. There's a lot of people out there that'll spit in your face. This is a place that you can come, you won't be judged, and no one will spit on you. So, you can enjoy yourself and learn and grow. If you have something to offer, the Coven would love to hear it. As someone who welcomed me in and added me into the Coven, I was able to leave a lot of stuff out there, and a lot of Augustine's followers and supporters have certainly liked what I do, and vice versa. And that's important for us to always continue growing and keeping what we love, which is left-hand path belief, Satanism, diabolism alive, and growing to always better ourselves and to better the communities that follow it. With that being said, Augustine, I would like to hear what your thoughts are. You mentioned earlier the Satanic Panic of the 80s. Now, we're in a weird stage right now in the world where more people were waking up. More people were leaving the church than ever before. The numbers of congregates going to Christian and Catholic masses is the smallest it's ever been in history. There are a lot of people waking up to paganism, to witchcraft, to Wicca, to Satanism, to everything, Norse mythology, everything in between. There's people waking up to these new, not new spiritual paths, but new to them. So I would like to see what your thoughts are. Do we think that there will ever be a resurgence of the Satanic Panic where they will try to come and arrest people and to silence us? Or do you think that there's too many people waking up too rapidly at this point that won't ever happen again? And it's going to flip the tides the other way, where eventually we will outnumber the modern religions, or the I don't want to say modern religions, but the dogmatic religions.
During the time of the witch trials, over 500,000 people in Europe alone lost their lives. We lost the lives here in America, which I don't remember what the number was for here, but it was in the thousands. That will never happen again, because we are no longer unintelligent in a world of technology that brings nothing but more and more intelligence to our plate. We are a hell of a lot smarter than what we was in them times. And we're a hell of a lot smarter now than what we was in the 80s. Religious grip of Yahweh, the Christians, is rapidly slipping, and people are waking up. They have been waking up for quite some time, and a lot of what you see going on now. I'm gonna throw this out there because, like you, I don't give a fuck. But let's talk about LGBTQ. Let's talk about Black Lives Matter. These people 20 years ago would never have tried to step out with these organizations because dominant Christian and Catholic entities had a grip on the people, on the politicians, on the law, etc., etc. But now, because people, due to a lot of it really comes from, we've had all these major apocalyptic type prophecies that were supposed to happen, never happened. We had 2012 didn't happen, Y2K didn't happen, the return of Jesus in the year 2000, it didn't happen. So people are like, wait a minute, all these prophecies that that our grandparents and our parents were totally hysterical about have come and gone. So what does that say about their Christian faith and their prophecies and their revelations or whatever? It's saying that to a lot of people that the big bad God who says thou shalt not or burn in hell, it says to them he doesn't exist. But people, so people are like becoming more freer. They're standing out more. They're voicing themselves more. And when you look at it all, really, it's a very big satanic movement. And the fact that Satanism is the adversary towards Christianity. Now, with them waking up and looking at Norse or witchcraft or voodoo or something as a new means for spirituality, is because humankind has to have some set kind of religious practice, or there's a big void in the life. So Jesus didn't come back. All this other shit didn't happen. So people are like left without faith, let's say. So now they're looking for something else to put their faith into, because that's just a part of being human. We seem to have this need to have gods and goddesses and things like that to help cope with stresses and depressions and whatever else. I mean, people just need religion. And so, yeah, they're turning to the ancient stuff for two reasons. One, it's not Christian. And, and two, it's touching back in the roots of maybe their ancestries, There's a lot of people that are Catholics and Christians who, if you do their ancestry and go back in time, their great-great-great-grandmother was a witch or was a medicine woman, of an Indian tribe, or was a shaman of another tribe, or from Africa, a lot of the African Americans, their voodoo and hoodoo comes from Africa, So they're trying to fill a void, knowing that God is basically dying because he's been found out that he's not all powerful like everybody's always preached that he was. So that's how I see that.
Well, I think that one thing people don't take a lot of time to think about is that a lot of faiths, a lot of religions, they come from the area that you were raised, and they, come from that tradition. Christianity is not that case. Hindus are in India and in Eastern countries. They were raised that way. Yes, there might be some Hindus in America that moved here, or people that practice it that weren't originally from India. That's fine. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, once upon a time, people in certain areas were raised certain ways. Christianity came around and wanted everyone in the world to believe that. And it wasn't by suggestion, it was by force. You believe what we're telling you, or we will fucking burn you alive, or we will murder you. And people want to ignore that fact. Even Christians want to ignore that fact. Oh, yeah. No, what about the fact of what Augustine just said? The fact that your great-great-great-great-great-grandmother might have been a black magic practitioner witch who was in the woods doing some of the most diabolical shit that you can imagine. And then the Christians came along and took her people and either said, you accept our God or you die. And some of them did die. And they went down as martyrs for their cause. But the problem is the first few will go down as martyrs. But the ones that are seventh in line that watch the six before them skin melt off their body, that's the person that say, no, I'll accept your God, I don't want to die. And then over time, their children and their children and their children. It is a religion of force. It is a religion of persecution to anybody who is outside of that. It is a religion of murder. I'm not saying that within their text and within some of their ideologies there's not truth, there's not fruit of growth. There is in everything. There's the perennial philosophy that exists in all religions. We're all pushing for similar things. But theirs was one that it wasn't just let our people be Christians. No, the world needs to be Christian or the world shall burn. And that's the problem. And now people are waking up, and they're waking up to that fact. They're waking up to the horrible, fucking horrific truths of what these religions have done. Look at all of the indigenous Indian children who were murdered by Catholic priests and Catholic nuns and buried in unmarked graves in Canada outside of their school. That in the last couple of years have been found thousands of young children murdered because they didn't speak our tongue, because they didn't want to accept their God. Pretty fucking horrific. Yes. And I want to say something, folks, to let's play the devil's advocate here. No pun intended. People will say, well, Satanists don't kill people. And say, no, there's definitely satanic cults out there that have done human sacrifice, and there are satanic cults that do animal sacrifice. And anybody that's in the satanic community says, none of us ever do that. That's bullshit. There's definitely been murders that have went on. But when you weigh it against something like Christianity, it's not even in the same league. When you look at the Malleus Maleficarum and you look at the witch trials, when you look at the Satanic Panic, the people got murdered during that time, not anything like the witch trials, but that. When you look at the indoctrination of those children, when you look at them killing the Gnostics, go back and look at the Cathars. The Cathars were Gnostics. The Christians didn't like their version of Christianity, so they fucking burned them all. And the good thing about the Cathars is they were ballers, man. They danced into the fires, as the legends say. They didn't care about dying because dying was freeing them from the demiurge, and they got the hell out of here, so they danced into the giant pit. But what I'm getting at, folks, is you have to wake up to the truth. If you want to remain Christian afterwards, after researching and truly understanding Christianity, that's fine. But what I find is people stand up so wholeheartedly for the Christian faith and the Catholic faith, but they've never read the Bible. They know nothing of the actual passages. They believe that all the passages are exactly the way that they were told. Let's look at the story of the legend of the Tower of Babel. The Tower of Babel was said to be a blessing to the world because people were lost. So God brought them together, and as they built the tower, he destroyed it and scattered them into multiple tongues. And in every one of the 12 tribes of the world, he placed a powerful sect of Jews. And within that sect, they were all brainwashed and don't remember who they were or what they were doing. But why he did that was over time, those Jewish brothers, the sons of Israel, would then be able to teach the rest, and they would all come together and they would all grow together into enlightenment. So people don't even understand that story. I've had Christians throw out at me, oh, well, the devil worshippers tried to make a tower to God. No, the sons of faith tried to make a tower to God, and he knocked them all down so that they could all equally grow together as one giant unit. So, and I'm using that as an example that people will argue their faith without ever understanding their faith. And we're getting to an age now where people are waking up. people have more means available to them than ever before. Translations and apps and different things that, if they choose to not be blinded and distracted, they can use those same distractions as ways of digging deeper and understanding the truths that were once so potent that are now mostly lost. So please do your due diligence and discover things. Stop just blindly following. I said that several times tonight. I'll keep saying it. That's my topic of the night, is please wake the fuck up and do your research. I have a comment here. It says, I understand the dogma. The saints symbolize other gods in my case. Yeah, so I mean, if you're saying that, Tanya, and I don't know your beliefs, but the saints symbolize, she said, the saints symbolize other gods. If you're looking at the African Aifa tradition, the Yoruba tribes, if you're looking at Vodun, if you're looking at Hoodoo, if you're looking at Palamayombe, or you're looking at Kimbanda or Umbanda, different type of religions out there were persecuted heavily by Christianity. And the way that they got away with it is they accepted Christianity, but they didn't. They took the Christian saints, like Umbanda. They took the saints and they used the Orishas and made the saints the Orishas. So they were able to still pray to their gods, which were saints, I'm using the bunny ears again, without being fucking burned alive. And the reason that is because in Portugal or Brazil was one of the biggest slave trades in the world. And they killed so many people and brought people here from Africa and from other areas in Europe and forced them into slavery and murdered them. And they weren't allowed to have any type of belief structure. So they formed ways of using Christianity in their own religions, such as Hoodoo and things of that nature, to be able to still practice their faith. I shouldn't have said Kimbanda, because Kimbanda is the complete opposite. Kimbanda is true devil worship. That's saying fuck Christianity in all of its senses, and we are true devil worshipers. And for those that don't know me, that's my practice, aside from regular Satanism. But that's what Tanya was getting at. She says, I'm Catholic, and there's nothing wrong with that depending upon your view of Catholic. And even if you have a view that's different to mine, there's nothing wrong with that either. I'm not saying that. It's just there's been a lot of murder there. Now, lastly, let's take a look. What time do we have here? We're 10:01, so we're going to get ready to wrap up here. But, I mean, Augustine, I would ask, we were both at one point in time kids that grew up in a Christian household that found our way to very, very different ideologies that I think saved our lives. What would you say to someone right now just discovering this? Think of a 14-year-old you, or think of whatever age you were. I was 14. Think of that younger you, but in someone else that's starting to balls up enough to break free from that dogmatic indoctrination and starting to look on the internet. Because I can't imagine that. As you said, this shit wasn't around when we were kids. So
right.
I couldn't even imagine having this much stimulation. I mean, when I decided to break away, I found, like I said, the Satanic Bible, and that's the only book I had, and I didn't know anybody else that even read it or knew about it. It was actually a very special thing to me because I was the only person in my mind in the world that knew about this at that time. What would you say to someone in now New Age discovering this world? What would be your advice to them on how to go about it, the do's and don'ts?
Well, the first thing I'd ask them, is, do you know yourself? Because before you can know great secrets, you need to know yourself. You need to know why you're coming towards this. So, first thing I would ask a 14-year-old is, do you know yourself? And what do you know about yourself? And then the question would be, well, why are you looking towards this direction? What is it about it? So it would really depend on what their answer is for that. But I wouldn't lead them straight to the LaVey at first. I would lead them more to the Bible of the Divine Black Flame. Bible of the Black Flame is, to me, a very well written, not just it's theistic, but that's not the only reason why. But the way it's written and structured, it has not blinds per se, but it has safeguards. And where the Satanic Bible is pretty much like, total anti-Christian. If you get slapped, punch them in the face, or, it has a lot of violence in there. So I wouldn't, for a 14-year-old, I wouldn't direct them directly to that. That would be something once they matured older and had a good firm grip on what Satanism is, which is the empowerment of the self. It would depend on the answer that they would give me for why are you seeking this and do you know yourself, and then I would give them something that's not quite so heavy. You know what I mean?
No, I can understand that, because when I found LaVey, it felt freeing in a way, because I found someone that I felt understood me, but at the same time, I feel like it also definitely threw me deeper into the darkness. I was very... You could use the word violent. I was a very violent person. I was, if you're going to do me wrong, you're going to punch me in the face, I'm going to break your legs. It was always, whatever you do to me, I'm going to do 10 times worse, and I did fully embrace that dark character, and I became that thing I despise nowadays, which is that anarchist Satanist that doesn't know anything and was just so fucking angry at the world. But I let that be the fuel that launched me past that. And unfortunately, that's also the net that keeps a lot of people there. And you and I both know that when you go deeper, there's a lot of depth to be found, and we'll never get to the bottom of it. But it allows for so much more.
Yeah, the abyss is a deep, dark place. So it would have to depend on what their answers are, what their life background is. There's a lot of variables there. But I would definitely start a teenager out more with the Bible of the Divine Black Flame, or even, let me look at my library for a second. I'd even instruct them to go and learn the Golden Dawn.
Yep.
The Golden Dawn has released a newer book by the Cicero's. It's basically it's built for beginners, because even their self-initiation to the Golden Dawn system book, that was very popular for a long time, it's still very heavy, like trying to study for a doctorate, right? The way they present the information, the way that they want you to, the syllabus they give you to read and all this, it's just that is, even though they were trying to make it for a solitary person to do the work, it was almost impossible. I mean, they wanted you, before you did the Neophyte ritual, they wanted you to have all the wands and all the lemons and stuff like that. And they wanted you to make everything, and and that's a lot of stuff. It's very expensive to make these things, so that kind of book would be a little bit too much. But they have a newer book out, and it's actually in the other room because I was reading it. It's on my nightstand. It's called The Magic of the Golden Dawn, and it's a smaller version made basically for beginners. The reason why I have it is because I want to see if there's any gems within it that they have added other than what was in the self-initiation. The actual Black Brick of Israel Regardi, his stuff is really, it misses more information than it shares. It's basically like a very dry, here's the ritual, this is what you do the ritual type thing, and then move on. But even when he wrote the book, he tried to explain to people it's more of an encyclopedia than it is an actual system. So I would give a teenager something that's not quite so deep, dark, and heavy. I mean, I wouldn't hand them Sinister Tradition by the 09A, and say, here, study that, I'd give them something a little bit easier for them to be able, because, you have to take this stuff in chunks.
Yes.
You can't read any of these books in one sitting and be like, okay, I know everything now. It's just impossible. And to work the system in the self-initiation of the Golden Dawn, that system takes 6 months per each chapter, some longer until you get to the portal grade. And then once you get to the portal grade, you got to study even more before you even do that ritual. And the things you have to have, they basically want you to have the vault of the Adepi.
Yep.
Before it to work. It's like, how the hell are you going to do that? So that would be too much. So I would give a teenager based on his answers to my questions, knowing the history of his life and what's bringing him to this point, I would start them with something a little easier. And as they mature, I would give them a little bit more of the dark side, or basically more powerful rituals, more in-depth studies, you know. So that's what I would do for a teenager. Or like you and me, we jumped we jumped in the fire feet first, you know.
We did. You know, and I think I looking at it in hindsight, I often wonder if I would have started in a different light, how that would have worked. But I also kind of like the fact that I found out how to do all this in such a fucked up way. But like you said, I mean, you're always going to read and redefine and refine what it is that you're studying. So even if you look at the self-initiation book of Israel Regardie, we're on like the 7th version of it right now. And each time the Ciceros, I think, have continued to refine that and add to it and change it. Because over time, as Augustine said, you can read it, you can study it, but it is more of a study guide than it is a tell-all. You can't, folks, understand this lifestyle and these workings unless you work them. And that's what I said earlier, where people will talk a big game, but I know they're not living it in a lot of cases, because there are certain things that will happen to you in ritual that will change all that. It's good to understand the theory of it. And we all understand the theory. And we can all have the similar rituals and have different outcomes to the rituals. But as I've talked about many times before, 7 people do the same ritual to the same god or same spirit with 7 different belief systems and things that they've studied. They'll have 7 different outcomes, but within all 7 of those outcomes, there will be a stream of congruency there that'll run between all 7 of them. So when someone doesn't have that congruency at all, you're like, you didn't actually do the fucking work, and don't bullshit me. But you know, a lot of times we just smile, because if you want to be that person who puts on the mask and the costume and pretends to be, you can be, because I don't give a shit either way. I'm doing me. If you want to really live it, I'll give you the keys to live it. If you want to throw those keys to the side and pretend to live it, and that's your character, that's okay with me, because it doesn't change my life, only yours. So I think what Augustine said there was very important information. Start off slow. I think the Golden Dawn is a great way to start off, to be honest with you. And like I said, I think a lot of people would say, start off with the Golden Dawn to be a left-hand path practitioner? Yes, because... Absolutely. Do the rituals of the pentagram and hexagram for a year. Do them every single night, every single morning. If you can do it in the middle of the day, do them as well, because you will notice the subtle bodies of yourself, your physical nature, your mental nature, your emotional nature. You'll notice them change. You will have experiences, because I can tell you, when I used to work the Golden Dawn, I had experiences with angels. I've had experiences with higher consciousness. In fact, the only experience I've ever had with what I would consider samadhi, absolute stillness, the disappearing and dissolution of self, happened through the Golden Dawn. I've had very high levels of ritual, very high levels of meditation, but there was one time where I completely vanished and became the all-seeing eye of consciousness. And that happened through Golden Dawn working, and it's never happened since. I've always been trying to reach that level again. I've never reached that level again. And some people hear you and say, what do you mean? I can't explain the level of height that this was, but it happened during Golden Dawn workings. So start out with the Golden Dawn, folks, and then if you want to go to darker means, slowly integrate the darkness in. And eventually, maybe someday you'll get to, the Klipoth, and you'll get to some of those darker sides that have never-ending tunnels to them, and learn those caverns. But that's for future episodes and future, practices for yourself. So I hope you guys learned something this evening, and I think other than that, we'll wrap up for the night. Thank you guys for tuning in and leaving your comments. And Augustine, my brother, thank you so much for coming on and getting to know one another and share your knowledge.
Hey, I really appreciate the opportunity. It's been wonderful. It's been great. I want to give a shout out to my hell wife, Tiamat Moriar, because she really helps me awful lot with the Coven. And we also have the Black Witch Society, which is geared more towards satanic witchcraft. And she helps me run that. So, big shout out to her, because she's been with me since day one.
That's awesome, man. Every man has a good woman. I mean, usually that's the case. If not, it's a rarity. So, you know, we need to have that strength behind us to keep us pushing, and I'm certainly glad to hear you have yours. So, you know, folks, if you're listening out there, if you're listening out there, please go follow everything this man is doing. Follow his work, try his rituals, and just get to know him. He's a great gentleman, and I'm glad to be able to have him on the show tonight. I do want to say real quick a shout out to my father-in-law, Crowbar. It's his birthday this evening. He passed away a couple years ago, and we were celebrating prior to the show. I will sometimes have a beer during the show, but I don't usually drink a full glass of whiskey. So if you see me drinking a glass the whole time, I was slipping some whiskey for my father-in-law, who was like a father to me. So much love to you, Crowbar. I miss you, brother. Happy birthday. And other than that, guys, thank you so much. You can catch us in 2 weeks, and give me a second because I'm going to fuck this one up real quick.
Okay.
Our guest in 2 weeks, I'm really excited because I know nothing about this. And this will be, honestly, one of the first times that I have absolutely no clue of what we're going to be discussing. And let me get the flyer here. Our next guest is Chow-Yon Koo. She is the author of Spellbound, A New Witch's Guide to Crafting the Future, and it is Oriental magic. And I got to be honest with you, I've studied a lot of different paths in life. I know nothing of Oriental magic. So this will be a learning experience for me, something I am very excited to talk about. Her book is beautiful. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. I'm anxious to learn, as you guys all are. So make sure you check that out in 2 weeks. And other than that, Augustine, once again, brother, Hell Satan, love you, man. Thank you for coming on the show. And, thank you to all the listeners out there. Much love on Knights of the Nephilim. We'll catch you next time.
Yeah. Hail Satan.
Hail Satan.